And you're very welcome back to Leitrim Daily's YouTube channel, where today we are taking a look back at what has been a fairly tumultuous year for Sligo Rovers. I'm joined by their, I want to say captain, but he's not even at the club anymore, Kyle Callan-McFadden. You're very welcome to the programme.
Thanks for having me on, Breifne.
Now, I suppose this season for the league, entire league campaign, you were the captain of the Bitter Red, but you've since moved on to pastures new in Kings Lynn in Norfolk. You're moved to Norwich. It's a bit of a change. Can you tell us maybe why that's happening?
Yeah, a bit of a change. Yeah. So it was a move. I suppose. I mean, I was at Sligo for 4 years. Me and my wife and I brought my two kids up there. Me and my wife loved it there for the 4 years, but we had a talk. And it was probably time to maybe move back across the water. Get my wife back closer to home for herself. She got herself a good job in the NHS. So and thankfully Kings Lynn had an offer there waiting for me to come over, and it all happened really fast. But little change now, and we're looking forward to getting settled in and getting back to normal again.
Let's rewind a little bit because, of course, you talk about Norfolk being home, and for your wife, it's where she grew up. You grew up in the lovely little village of Ramelton, up in, I want to say, northern Donegal. It's still a fair bit from the top up there, but it's north of Letterkenny, a lovely little seaside village. You grew up there, and you found your way to Norwich. How did that all happen? How did you end up at Norwich? I know I'm a Norwich City fan, so I better be honest about it, fully transparent. So I've always taken a bit of an interest in your career because of that. But you ended up at Norwich. You ended up in an FA Cup final as well. Yeah. Unique for an Irish player, but also fairly unique for Norwich City. Where did that all happen, and I suppose how did you end up there at 18 years of age?
It was obviously when you're playing locally and in Donegal, you're playing your counties. You go into like the Galway Cup or the Kennedy Cup, and scouts start watching. They start approaching my dad. A few scouts approach him saying, "Oh, would you take him for trial or whatever?" I went to a few places. I went to Aston Villa, Blackburn, went to Leicester, Falkirk, went to Norwich as well. Normally if you do well in the trials, teams would offer you maybe like a 2-year scholarship or a year scholarship, whatever it may be. I went to Norwich and loved it straight away. The lads were brilliant. I got invited back then to a tournament in Guernsey. We flew out to Guernsey and played 2 teams in Guernsey, and then they said to my dad, "Look, we'll be in touch in the next few days." And they rang him and just said, "Yeah, we're looking to take Kyle over," and that was it. It was July 2011. I moved over and signed the papers, and I was there for a good 4 years.
And of course, that 4 years, in the middle of that, you ended up, I think 2013, I'm going to say, was the FA Youth Cup final up against Mitchell Beanie, another name well known to Sligo Rovers fans. What's it like playing at that level as a youngster? Because it's a fair distance from Ramelton to playing against Chelsea in a FA Cup final.
Yeah, it was a big shock, to be fair. I even remember going when I first moved over when I was 16. I remember pre-season. It was my first real proper professional pre-season. It was probably one of the hardest things I'd ever done in my life. But it takes you a while to get used to the way of life over there, because like I'm coming from training once a week, going to school every day, and then playing in a cow field on a Sunday morning sort of thing, to waking up every day during the week at 8 o'clock, going to training, 5 days a week, whatever, and playing on a Saturday. It takes a while to get used to, but when you finally get used to it, it's very enjoyable. You're coached by some of the best coaches in the UK. They try to develop you as best as they can. And then, you obviously start going from 16s to 18s to 21s. But, 18s was a good year for me. We went on and we won the Youth Cup. And that's obviously where I faced Mitch. We played them 2 legs, I think the final was, which is a bit strange. But I think we beat them over the 2 legs. And, we were just a horrible team to play against. And that's why probably Chelsea didn't fancy putting anything in against us.
Yeah, I think actually you won both legs, if memory serves me right. Yeah, or there was a draw and a win, but it was a fairly comprehensive result at the time. I remember as a Norwich fan, I think watching it on Twitter. We didn't have all these streaming opportunities that we have now, but Was really, really good at the time to kind of watch and to see a relatively small team come through like that. And of course, you played a major part in that particular victory itself. You met your wife there. I'm presuming that's where you met her. And then you decided, or it didn't work out at Norwich, I suppose, essentially, and you found yourself heading to the States. You spent a year in Orlando. Why the States? Why not come back to Ireland at that point in your career?
Well, after Norwich, I mean, teams were looking to take me on trial, this, that, the other. You know, I went to a few teams. A few teams would say, like, oh, you know, we see more as a right back. We see more as this, that. We have no space for centre backs at the time or whatever. So I just kind of got fed up. I remember I went up to Hamilton and there was almost like a deal done there. Alex Neil sent me up there to Hamilton. He said, look, we're going to let you go with Norwich, but like, look, I know Hamilton will have you. Because that's obviously where he came from. And then when I was leaving Hamilton, I got a call from my agent saying, look, Orlando, have just offered your contract. Because I knew Harrison Heath, he was at Norwich with me. He lived with me in digs at Norwich, and he spoke to his dad, Adrian Heath, who's now manager of Minnesota, if I'm correct. And then Adrian Heath spoke to Anthony Pulis, who was the B team manager at Orlando at the time. And Ant called me, and we got everything sorted. And yeah, me and my missus moved over. It was great. Obviously, you know, big different to Norwich. You know, footballing wise, but yeah, it was a good year, and we enjoyed it. But that came to an end, and we flew back across the pond again.
Because obviously you wanted the better weather, so you came to Sligo at that point. In terms of the reality of that situation, though, because a lot of, say, non-League of Ireland fans would look at that, the English connection, the American connection, and kind of ask, why would you choose the League of Ireland? Why would you come back to a club like Sligo? What's your reason for that at the time?
Well, my missus actually fell pregnant, and we kind of decided that we wanted to be closer to family, whether it be in England or Ireland. You know, I spoke to my agent at the time and I said, look, if there's anything available in England or Ireland, let me know. So he put out feelers or whatever, and then I spoke to Kieran Sadler, who was at Sligo at the time, and you know, I was asking about the club and were they looking for anyone or whatever, and then within minutes, Declan McIntyre rang me, who's the assistant manager, Dave Robertson at the time, and you know, he was selling me the club, and then Dave rang me, and we got a deal sorted. I went into, you know, the team in Orlando and said, look, my missus is pregnant, you know, we're looking to move back home to family. You know, we weighed up all insurance and stuff to have a baby over there, and it just wasn't feasible. It was a lot of money to have a kid in America. So we just decided to come back closer to home, and it was definitely the right decision to join Sligo.
Yeah, of course, good community club there as well. There's a lot of similarities between Norwich and Sligo. It's fairly rural. There's a fairly good community vibe and a community culture within both clubs. What's been the highlight of the last 4 years?
I suppose probably being made captain of Sligo. You know, it was a proud moment for me. I think I was maybe 21 at the time when Gerard Little told me I was going to be captain. Myself and John Russell more or less shared it. But then I think, you know, obviously we flirted with relegation for probably 2 of them 4 years I've been there. You know, avoiding relegation was obviously good, but obviously with the standard of players we had, we shouldn't have been down around the relegation zone. But the big standout moment for me was probably, obviously personally, winning Player of the Year my first year is good, but for the club and for the team and everyone around there, I suppose the semi-final, we played Dundalk, sold out the Showgrounds. You know, the game probably should have went our way if, you know, I'm not really sure what the fourth official does behind the net, but on the night you can see he didn't do too much. So, but look, if the decisions go your way, you know, we could have had an FAI Cup final. But look, that's the way football goes, and then you learn from it.
Yeah, in terms of, I suppose, the last season, since that game against Dundalk, it's been a roller coaster pretty much for everybody because of COVID, and it's affected everything. But I suppose for Sligo, it's really been a case of of 2 seasons, effectively. The first one, which was maybe 4 or 5 games at the start of the year, 0 points,
Yeah.
fairly desperate stuff, if the truth be told. And then fast forward 6 months of a break, and it's like we're watching a completely different side. More wins than anything else, rocketing up the table, finishing with a fourth place finish, which should be good enough for Europe. We kind of cross our fingers, but in previous seasons, given the way the cup runs out, and I suppose the way the cup is looking at the moment, it would be expected that Sligo will qualify. You got to be happy with where the club or where you're leaving the club.
Definitely, 100%. Leaving the club on a high. Personally, I think I've had a good season after the lockdown. I don't think anyone could really say that they've kind of shined before the lockdown. With 4 or 5 defeats, whatever. We scored 2 goals. We shipped a lot of goals, but we kind of just, when we came back after lockdown, sat down, had a talk, and just kind of wrote that off and said, look, we go again. And the gaffer or John Russell or Brian Dorian never put any pressure on us at all. They said, look, you know what you need to do to get out of this rut, and we went out against Derry, and that's when the cork started turning. And yeah, climbing up the table to fourth, left it late, but it's good to finish fourth, and obviously, yeah, as you said, the way the cup goes, it's looking like Europe will be there for the club next year.
And of course, I suppose let's talk about the reasons behind you leaving, because Sligo is a full-time operation, although probably not the kind of money involved that we hear about on the newspapers and their TV screens every day when it comes to football across channel. And I suppose the COVID lockdown struck, and you're left in a situation where you've just been temporarily laid off by the club, as all the players were, as a lot of clubs did to their staff. And I suppose you had to weigh up the options: mid-20s, young kids, married, and you made a decision effectively to go out of the world of professional football. Although, funny enough, you're back in it again, but we'll talk about it in a second. You made a bigger life decision, and I suppose I want to kind of delve into that a little bit, and about the reasoning behind why you've made this call. And even though it all happened very quickly, it's obviously something that's been brewing for a while with you in the back of your mind.
Yeah, definitely. It's funny how it kind of started out. I done an interview for a Norwich newspaper about the lockdown in Ireland and about the league and what's going to happen. It was a newspaper called the EDP in Norwich, and I just passing comment. I said to the interviewer, I said, look, I've been watching Kings Lynn, and they've they seem to be flying up the tables or whatever. They could potentially 2 back-to-back promotions, and they did get promoted to the National League. And then I got a text or a call of someone from the club saying, look, we've seen you've been watching us. Would you be open to a talk or whatever and a chat? And, it was, and then I spoke to my missus, and I said, look, potentially there's a deal here from a team in Norfolk, and told her the ins and outs. And, obviously with us living in Sligo, and my parents living in Donegal, if Ella was to go into work, you're sticking 2 kids in childcare just off the back of a lockdown. So, I'm not going to go into money or nothing, but, it'd probably be difficult coming off the back of lockdown, putting 2 kids in childcare and, trying to catch up on money like that. Whereas the missus almost had a job waiting in England for her. Childcare's, I think it's free over here. So it kind of worked out better for us. And obviously where we're living now, our new house is it's 15 minutes from our mum's house, it's 15 minutes from sister's house. So we've got almost family on call if you ever need a help with childcare here and there. So it just seemed to work out better and have family closer, and that's why we made the decision to come back across the water.
Is that a situation that a lot of players find themselves in? Because the age profile of the entire league has gotten so young now. It's all lads in their early 20s versus maybe 10, 15 years ago, it would have been mid to late 20s, early 30s would have been the age profile. Have players found it difficult to stay in the league for those financial restrictions and that you've spoken about there?
I'd say so. I'd say certain clubs, players might find it difficult to stay at certain clubs. Obviously, Dundalk and Shams have, got big backers who's managed, they tie down players to maybe 3-4 year deals. pay silly money. You know, clubs are trying to compete against that, and just unfortunately, clubs can't. So, yeah, as you say, you know, it seems to be a younger average age in the league. So maybe the older guys are maybe, you know, dropping out of football and getting a bigger job than what their wages pay with the clubs, or maybe a lot of them are, you know, thinking, look, I go to England, I could be financially better off. So yeah, it's obviously what you prefer, and you know, you just got to weigh it all up. If you have a family, then you know it's an even bigger decision, especially with me and two kids and my missus to think about. It was a massive decision, but I think it was the right one at the time.
So even though you joined Kings Lynn and they're in the conference premier at the moment, so they're in the 6th tier. It's still a decent level of football. It's semi-professional. They've since gone professional since you've signed for them. So you're actually back in that situation again where you're going to be playing football every day with them. Which, are you happy about that?
Oh, definitely, yeah. And the job that my wife has started is very flexible with her. So whenever we get our schedule on a Monday or a Sunday, she can choose shifts. So we can all work around it, you know. So yeah, I think it was definitely right to come back here, and you know everything just seemed to pan out well for us, and that's why we came back.
Yeah, and I suppose it's nice to see good things happen to good people. You made the decision for life reasons, maybe other than football reasons, but it's all kind of come together and worked out. And I suppose some would argue that it's okay. There's no hunt for European football at the end of your season, but there's a very definite profile and quality to the football you're going to be playing. Tell us a bit about Kings Lynn for people who aren't familiar with that part of the country. And geographically, if you look at England, it's in that little humpback on the back of the county on the eastern side. It's just on that point where it meets Norfolk and the rest of the country. Tell us a bit about the club though, and what ground they have, what kind of average supporters they get. Obviously, none at the moment, but in general.
Yeah, not too many at the moment, but yeah, I think they average around two plus. You know, 2,000 a game, like, so it's a good fan base. It's a lovely stadium. I was at there today. Actually, it was my first day training. I was in this morning. Met all the lads. I know 4 or 5 of the lads already, so it wasn't too bad trying to, you know, to mix in or to get to know other boys. Then, you know, but yeah, it's a lovely place. You know, it's a club that's definitely pulling in the right direction. They've got some big plans for the next few years, so it's definitely something that I'm delighted to be part of, and you know, I'm looking forward to now my international clearance, hopefully coming through this weekend, and I might be able to get some minutes under my belt.
Of course, they're having a struggle at the season at the moment. They're near the foot of the table, but you're well used to those challenges of coming in foot of the table and pushing teams up the table. You are up in your final, task with Sligo Rovers, maybe to collect the Player of the Year award. One of 3 nominees, our own Niall Morahan, up against you for that challenge. He's already won the Supporters Player of the Year. What's it been like? And Ed McGinty, who of course made his Ireland under-21 debut yesterday, as we talk. The two of them are up against it, up against you for that award. Niall's already won the Supporters Player of the Year. What's it been like watching the likes of those two lads who would have been under 17 and under 18 players when you joined the club to now being, I suppose, your partners behind and in front of you?
Yeah, it's been brilliant seeing the boys come through. I remember when I first came, actually, I think Ed might have started a month or two before, or the last month of the season before I joined. So I was living in Donegal for the first month or two, and he was getting lifts up with me and Decky McIntyre at the time. He was only young at the time, and so was Niall. Niall wasn't really in much the first couple of years, but then he burst on the scene almost. You know, it's brilliant to see, and I think that's a massive part of what Brian Dorian and the underage setup has done as well with the club. You know, breeding these young players through. You know, look at John Mahan as well, and Jack Keeney. He came through and moved on to UCD. Liam Kerrigan as well. You know, there's a lot of young boys come through there. Even Regan Donlan, he started the youth system. I'm looking at him now. He's been ever present since. But no, Niall and Ed have been 2 rocks for the team, and you know, I suppose I'm surprised that I'm up for Player of the Year, because the two boys have been absolutely flying, and it's going to be a head-to-head between them two, I reckon.
Well, I suppose us here in Leitrim, we'll always be cheered for the local lad. But then Ed, definitely not that far away. He's in Ballyshannon, so he's at the other end of the county,
Yeah.
kind of, almost a Tullahan native. Kyle, it's been an absolute pleasure catching up with you. The very best of luck to you in your new life in Norwich and with Kings Lynn FC. And we'll all be keeping an eye on the results, and hopefully we'll be seeing Kings Lynn maybe pushing up the table in the coming months and years ahead.
All right, thanks, Breifne. Cheers for that.